The history of baseball has a unique and remarkable story. But before I go into the actual history of baseball as an organization, I want to talk about a little bit of history with baseball for myself. Baseball has always been a part of my life in some way, shape, or form before I can remember, whether it was out back playing catch with my dad or being on teams with my own. In fact, I grew up in St. Louis, which is a very big baseball town because of the St. Louis Cardinals. I went to a lot of games with my family there. But I think some of the most memorable moments I have are when I was playing myself. And when I was 13 years old, it was a big year because my team won our own league. My team won the city championship, and I myself got to go to China to play baseball, actually. It was 2008, the Beijing Olympics were about to happen, and I was lucky enough to get on a team that was selected to go play at games for 12 to 18-year-olds. So I got to go there, have a really great experience visiting people there, and just getting to see the way baseball has affected people around the world, not just in America. And I just wanted to sort of give you a layout about why I think baseball is important. And so now I want to talk about how baseball was formed and how it became such a big deal everywhere. So its beginnings lie with children in England and in the United States when they were playing variants of the game. It wasn't even called baseball at that point. It was called rounders. But then it was in 1845 that some young men in Manhattan organized themselves enough and to the Knickerbockers Baseball Club. This was the first time it was called baseball officially, and wrote down the rules of the game that they were playing. So they were playing this game, and they decided to write down the rules of what they were doing. 20 years later, dozens of baseball clubs in New York and Brooklyn and their journalist friends had made what they called our national pastime more popular than cricket, and Manhattan became America's biggest hotspot for the new pastime. While these declarations of being a national pastime didn't make it the national pastime overnight, it didn't take long for things to become official. In 1876, baseball became a full-blown professional sport in America with the formation of the National League of Professional Baseball Clubs. Although distinctions between their players and their clubs, which had become small businesses of their own at this point, had been hardening for years, the National League formalized the division, which has continued until today. Baseball soon outperformed other spectator sports in popularity and contributed to what's called the sports boom of the 1880s and 1890s. But it didn't take long because of their popularity for competitors to try and enter in on the National League success. So they wanted to create leagues of their own, not like the popular movie with Tom Hanks in it. But the National League either defeated these competitors easily or just outright ended up coming and taking them into their own business themselves. However, there was one that they were not able to do that with. It was called the American League. And it became so big that the National League couldn't ignore it and it couldn't incorporate it. And so in 1901, the National League accepted the American League, and thus, today we now have the American League and the National League that make up each side of our World Series. So when you see a World Series, you have one team from the American League and one team from the National League, and that's how they compete. And baseball's quick rise to popularity didn't come without any controversy. It wasn't easy. One example of this would be something called the Reserve Clause controversy. In 1879, it was instituted that the manager of the team owned every player's contract, and it gave them the right to reserve his services for the following year. And so this essentially gave no power to the player. They couldn't say who they wanted to play for, and it gave them no bargaining power for what they wanted to earn. So players fought the reserve rule, and most notably, they made their own league eventually, tried to incorporate and make their own league against the National League. In 1890, they started this, but it didn't take long for that to fizzle out because they couldn't support it financially. And so, but the National League, seeing that this was a big problem, eventually gave in to the demands of the players and gave them more rights and gave them more ways to express their desire to play for other teams and also for bargaining power of their salary. But baseball has become America's most popular sport in some people's eyes, my own included. But it did come because of successfully crossing over the cultural and socioeconomic barriers of the time, specifically with respect to race issues over time. The Major League color barrier was breached in 1947 by Jackie Robinson, as most people know, but it was by the careful planning and daring of the Brooklyn Dodgers. The manager's name was Branch Rickey, and it was him and Jackie Robinson that decided to pioneer the idea of race coming into baseball, but it wasn't easy. And there's been many movies dedicated to the triumphs of that success. And if it weren't for those people involved, we wouldn't have baseball in the same way that we have today. Because currently baseball is integrated into large numbers of African American players, and it's not uncommon to see starting lineups including more African American players than white players. So today, baseball is still is a huge business. It's valued at over $36 billion, but even more valuable than its money is its millions of fans that can connect with each other through a historic sport. Whether it's a father and a son like me and my father, or anyone else, I have personally experienced the way that baseball games can forge relationships. In conclusion, baseball may not be everyone's favorite sport, but it's certainly mine, both for its riveting display of athleticism and the rich history behind it. Thank you.